Hi, it's the Urban Lady Prepper. Welcome to part two of my interview with Gary and Hannah from the Eye Opener Society, where we talk about how convenience foods are damaging us and our kids, how better food means better mental health, and how to cope when things are dark. Enjoy. Going back to the show, because I know people are like, oh, wow, this is kind of esoteric. We're not talking about how you can use dryer lint to start a fire. Which is usually my usual steez. It's completely different. But Gary, you also mentioned that you were into prepping. How, and of course, we don't reveal everything that we do, but what got you into it, and to what extent are you into it? Are you like a casual prepper? Are you like, no, I take it a little more seriously than that? I'm just chill about it.
Yeah, I would consider myself kind of a casual prepper. And I'm a little bit different because I always felt if everything was to completely collapse around us, I'm not staying in one place, then I'm going to be on the road. And so that's how I kind of get myself prepared. Much like you, I think the number one thing is water. Water is the essential to life, and I'm always have water on hand. I also, through years, I've collected so many different things, tactical kind of stuff, like flashlights and different, outdoor survival tools. This way, I always have that ready. If it's needed, I'm going to have something. And I only got into that because, much like you, I was born in the Bronx, New York, and I've had experience in the emergency medical services and law enforcement over there. So I know that things can happen and things can go south really quick. And you need to be prepared for that. And even like I said, even in the smallest way, if it's just water that you're, saving up and, securing for when those events happen, that's good enough. If you want to go further, that's great too. Just make sure you have the essentials that you're going to survive with. And the whole fasting thing too, if I'm out there trying to survive, I could probably go longer without the hunger pains or anything like that because I do the fasting and I'm very used to not eating for long periods of time. So that helps with that preparedness too, as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's actually a tactic. Basically,
mhm.
it's a good tactic because one of the things I have on one of my banners on one of the things that I do is that we're only three missed meals away from anarchy.
Mhm.
People are just so used to putting something in their face, three times a day and snacking in between, that that's going to be the biggest adjustment, is not having food. Um, so you have a leg up on that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I have that leg up and it's great. Like I could probably like I'll never eat a Twinkie again, but I could stock up on them and have something to barter and trade with when it comes to food because I won't be able to eat it unless obviously if you're in that life or death situation, you're
I've
going to eat whatever
never
it
had a
is.
Twinkie. They just look nasty.
They're actually great.
I have a really good friend. I had all these friends that were like really into the whole health food thing before it was like a thing. And my friend Bob, he goes, you can nail that Twinkie to a tree, come back in 10 years, and it'll still be there. And,
Mhm.
and my other friend is like, yeah, and I'm still gonna eat it. Some people don't care. But yeah, ever since he said that, it's like I'm like, that really sounds unappealing. It just sounds terrible. Actually, my friend Elena, she designed the head logo for Urban Lady Prepper. She's a great artist. And she had gone to the store. She says, yeah, the weirdest thing happened. I went to my local grocery store and I got a loaf of bread, fresh baked bread, and for some reason I forgot about it, or something happened, or it fell on the floor, and she just ended up, well, I'll just put it out for the birds. It sat for like 4 days, nothing would touch it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes you wonder. It's like, wow,
Mhm.
you know what? Maybe you're spending $4 on bread that the birds won't eat. I
Hmm.
should just make my own bread, or at least be
Right.
more cognizant of what's going into it. If it's supposed to be fresh out of the oven and it's fresh on the ground and nothing's touching it.
Yeah, and like it's not just Twinkies that can last, days without, just out in the wild without getting mold or anything. a lot of foods now are the same exact
Mhm.
way. I heard too, some people are eating ice cream that's not even melting anymore.
Yeah, when they were talking about that on the old man's
Yeah,
podcast.
my old
It's
man's
like, yeah, this stuff
podcast.
doesn't even melt. And I go, well, I haven't come across that because I do love some ice cream, and every now and
Mhm.
then I will go and get myself a little some. But that was kind of creepy. When I heard that, I'm like, that sounds like some sort of awful ice cream sandwich where it would kind of sit there and it would kind of get a little fat on the sides, but it didn't actually melt. I'm like, I
Ew.
didn't think
Ooh.
about that. The only thing that I think about that I will never put in my face again, I don't care how, and I love some cheese, is the cheese in the plastic.
Mm.
That that old stuff you
Oh crap.
unfolded. That's, oh yeah, the stuff's terrible. It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't melt. It's just plastic. They don't even call it cheese. It's a processed cheese food.
Hmm.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, I
that's
heard
all I
like
need
there's
to know.
not even cheese listed anywhere on the package.
Yeah, and like also McDonald's cheese is similar to that. And I've seen people who have done experiments with fast food and they like keep a McDonald's burger or something like that in a bag for like 10 years and it still looks the same if you unwrap it. And I'm like,
That's
dear
horrifying.
God, you have to look into it. Like you could probably do
That's
a whole
horrifying.
show on it. You'll be so disgusted. I went into a rabbit hole one time with it, and I don't. I give me anxiety thinking about it again.
Well, and it's and I just did the blog on food, so it's kind of timely. But that's one of the things that I brought up. Everybody's so crunched for time, and of course, busy moms, busy people. You come home like, the idea of chopping vegetables and just cooking something is horrifying. I'm just going to hit this drive-through,
Yep.
not realizing not only is it expensive, you don't know what's in this stuff anymore. You
Hmm.
just don't. And yeah, as someone who has gone through a drive-through, and especially when I was moving, it's like, oh, I am starving. I'm just gonna go to this drive-through and get a cheeseburger. And yeah, I don't know about that anymore. I think I'm just gonna stay hungry.
Yeah,
I don't want
yeah.
to eat
I'm
something
definitely
that can
guilty of
sit in the
that.
bag for 10 years and not change.
Yeah, I'm guilty. Like especially with like like with my kid having like a dietary restriction, and like sometimes I'm like, I am so overstimulated from my day. I'm getting you a Happy Meal, and like I try so hard not to do it. But some days I'm just like, oh, I can't do it. But I've tried to like definitely like expand what he can eat and like make him try different things. Because like I said, it's scary when you find out information like this and you see like real experiments. You're like, holy crap, what am I putting in
Yeah,
my child's belly and what am I putting in my belly?
yeah. And one of the points that I was making, it's the cost. You want to make sure that this money that you're earning and spending, is the last thing I just saw was like 11% our expendable income is going to groceries, and that's a big chunk, especially if you're
Hmm.
a person just trying to juggle everything, and you want to make it count because when your diet is poor, and especially when you're dealing with growing children and they have so many things, brain development, their muscle, all these different things that are developing, all the dyes and all the sugars and all the sodium and all this, the food that you're feeding, it's kind of giving you a break for a second because, okay, I don't have to worry about dinner. I'm just going to give them the food. I'm just going to let them eat. And this way I catch a break. But it's kind of like a short-term solution. It's not really a long game where you're
Hmm.
like, all right, I'm going to take the time and make sure that they have this, or I'm going to pay attention to what this food is doing to them. Like you noticed about foods with dye in it,
Hmm.
for maybe for mom to be a little more attentive. It's like, okay, every time I give him this red thing, he's on the ceiling within 20 minutes, then maybe
Hmm.
I'm not doing that, not be so busy that you don't realize that what we do in convenience might not be good long term, especially for the kids.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is even related or if this is like genetics, but my kid is huge. I'm not even over exaggerating. You would look at him and be like, dang, this kid is 5 years old. That's how big my child is. And then I see kids that are the same exact age, born the same year, and they're tiny. I'm really confused. And I'm seeing these kids like eat whatever. So I'm like thinking, oh my God, they should be maybe like overweight or, something of the sort. But no, they're just like tiny and scrawny and they're always sick. And wow, and then here's my kid fit. He looks like a mini jock, like and he's so healthy. His teeth are phenomenal. And, he's ever since I've become really strict on like the no dye, the only time he's getting sick is if like I'm directly like I'm sick and he's definitely getting it from me. But Gary can attest, like my kid is so healthy. He's
Mhm.
so big, eating things that are good for him. So I'm like, dang, his body is really agreeing with how I'm treating it.
Yeah. And it's important to get to take that time to figure
Hmm.
that out because it'll serve him well in the long run. Because when you see kids that are sickly, it's like, okay, well, maybe he's skinny because he's probably running around a lot, but
Yeah.
it's just what they're eating. And reading things, because I don't have kids myself. I have an awesome little granddaughter who, unfortunately, I'm missing a lot because I don't get to see her much.
Oh,
Next time I see her, she'll probably be taller than me, which isn't hard because I'm 5 feet. But
I'm 5'1".
she's getting there quick. And when I read these different things, how these different dyers are doing and how they're sneaking these different things into the food, but they're calling it something else. One of the blogs I mentioned, or one of the podcasts, that company Appeal Sciences was backed by a billionaire guy, was so controversial that these different stores put out press releases saying we're not going to carry it if it has this stuff on it. And I believe it's supposed to keep the food fresher longer, or to keep its color longer, whatever it is. It's not natural for what the food is supposed to do. And they're not sure what they're going to do to it. And it's like, at what point are we going to stop wanting to be guinea pigs for these different kinds of things?
Mm-hmm.
And as the choices narrow, because the prices are for everything's getting higher, especially for meat. At some point, folks have to say, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to be a little more selective while we have the opportunity to be selective. Because pretty soon, where our choices might be even more limited based on the drought, the water situation, the war situations. People don't realize how much stuff we get from other places. You think
Right.
we do a lot here, and we don't. We get a lot of stuff from Russia. We get a lot of stuff from the Ukraine. There's other places that are in conflict that we get stuff from, and all of that is affecting the price. So we probably should be a little more supportive of the farmers and our local folks if we're not going to do it ourselves, because then you end up with the Franken food and you don't know what it's doing to you, and then you're giving it to the kids.
Yeah. That whole, like, it's the whole millionaire person. I read about that too, and that's when I started becoming very selective, because I myself, I like fruits, even though that's sugar too, but I enjoy oranges and all. And I was looking for that appeal sticker on them, because I knew I was not going to make any kind of purchase like that, because I don't know what it really was or what I was putting in me. We're taking something so natural that grows off of a tree naturally, and we're constantly adding stuff to the most natural things in the world. And I always question that. Why do we have to add sugar to something that is sugar?
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is chemical addictions, and most of it is from the government. It's government controlled. And when our population keeps increasing, I understand there's an idea behind it that's probably good nature, saying, hey, well, we need more food to feed the population and it needs to last longer. But at the same time, when do we say enough is enough? When do we say we need to stop? Because I listened to your show and talking about the farmers, where they're changing farms now to the solar panels. We can't eat solar panels. That's not what we need farms for. When do we say enough is enough? When do we give the farms back to the farmers to actually produce crops again, actual sustainable food that's healthy and natural? We allow it. I always say humans are our own worst enemies, because
Yeah.
we just keep allowing it to happen.
The pesticides, and even some organic places I was reading, and that's something I'm going to be putting up about soon, is you'll have places that have the non-organic, and then you'll have the organic, and they're spraying the pesticides, and now there's this blowover onto the organic stuff, and they were finding this different levels of this particular chemical on the organic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so hard to keep things pristine that we're putting in the artificial flavors, the artificial colors. Like, oh, well, no one's going to eat hot dogs are gray. No one's going to eat a gray hot dog. So let's just pump this red color into it. And we've just gotten so used to that. And it's like, and what does this red stuff do? It doesn't matter, but it looks pretty.
Right. I
And
think
you're
that's
going to
one
pay
of
more.
the,
You're going to pay all this money to have this mystery thing, mystery stuff in you.
yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest lies that we accepted, the fact that we eat with our eyes. We don't. We were trained that way.
Mm-hmm.
If we keep making the food look pretty, then we're going to eventually start eating with our eyes. But if we didn't do that in the first place, we'll be eating anything regardless of the color or what it looks like. So I think that's one of the biggest falsehoods that were ever given to us.
Yeah, and I don't go too much into conspiracy stuff, but I think there's something to be said if you have a government that will allow, and that's something else that they were talking about on the Old Man's podcast, and we were talking about it in the chat about how there's just certain places where food that's FDA approved here is banned in other places in the world, and not just, first world countries, but just all over. It's like, no, because we know what the side effects are. So we're not going to make that available in our country at all. So we eat a lot of poison. But then on the other hand, if we're putting this into our bodies, it's going to make us unhealthy. And then that feeds into the whole pharma thing, because now you have people dependent on medicine, because thin, healthy people aren't profitable.
Right.
So it's kind of it's a cycle, it feels like it's a cycle. And I urge people to figure out where they are at, make a way to not basically be a victim, because we're kind of being victimized. We're not giving choices. And when we have them, they make them cost prohibitive.
Right. Exactly. We do. Like I said, Hannah and I, we go into supermarkets, same thing. She say, oh, let's get this. And I mean, oh, look at what's in this.
And then we change our mind and we look for something else. So we used to, before we started really benefiting and caring about our bodies, me and him used to be in and out of grocery stores. We'd have a whole cart full, but we would be out in like 30 minutes. Like we were speed checker outers. And now we're in there in grocery stores for like 2 hours sometimes, because we're sitting there reading ingredients saying, no, we're not getting this. And then we're trying to find an alternative that's more healthy. And, I don't mind it, because I would rather maybe give myself an extra year or so because I'm eating more healthy versus, like you said, being victimized into the crap that's convenient and cheap and stuff. I'd rather spend the extra money even though I don't have it sometimes.
Yeah. And I also found that once I started eating healthier, I actually started eating less naturally. And I don't know if that's just what's the inherent makeup of food. I don't know if it's just natural fiber or just the lack of sugar or whatever it is. But I just found out that I don't eat as much. And the same thing for meat. I found, been fortunate enough to where I'm close enough to like farms where I was able to get the meat from them. Was it a little more expensive? Yes. But thinking of how are the animals being treated? What are they being fed? When you have, just like when you have people crammed into too small of an area, disease is going to happen. It just being that. And then not only do I eat less, it's not just because of the cost. It's like, okay, something's giving its life so I can eat. So I don't want to be abusive of that. But I also want to make sure that if I'm going to do this, that they're going to be treated well, and I don't have to worry, are they stressed out? Because all that stuff gets passed on to us when we eat it. Yeah, and I don't want, if I'm going to pay extra, I at least want to know that I'm at least getting something of quality, and that they had, the life they had was fine. And I realize there's vegans screaming at me right now, going, "Don't eat it, don't eat it at all." But if I'm going to indulge in it, and I don't eat a whole lot of meat anymore either, because that's the other thing too. As I start eating better quality meat, once I had a steak, I was good for like a month. I didn't have to, it's a different thing when you start eating better. You just have, your relationship with food changes.
Yeah. I will say when I was in Mexico, their portions are a lot smaller than ours. I think every country's portions. I think we overfeed here in America, but it was crazy how fast my body adapted to their smaller portions and how I did not feel any type of sickness when I was over there other than like a headache because I had a lot of alcohol, and they're really big on tequila. So they just kept giving me tequila, and I don't want to be rude because like that's their delicacy. So I just kept drinking it.
It's like, let me twist my arm. Oh, no, no, no. Stop twisting my arm. More tequila.
Yeah, but then I got home, and when I tell you that we all have been like just upset stomachs and just like sick in our stomachs, and we've been home a little over 2 weeks now, we have been, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a crazy difference that I'm experiencing coming back to America and then having American food again versus like the food that I ate there. Like the meat was different. Like you said, I felt like when I was eating that meat, like it was a different texture. It was more natural. It was amazing difference.
I think because of all the empty calories and the artificial flavorings and colorings and whatnot. And my mom has the expression, she's like, how you eat something, but your taste buds aren't satisfied. I just feel like a lot of this processed food gives you that kind of instant gratification. But then you're like, you know what? Why am I still hungry? Why do I feel like I didn't have enough? It wasn't chocolate enough. Why do I feel like it was not starchy enough? And when you start eating differently and you're not eating all that processed stuff, your taste buds are satisfied, you're fuller quicker. And then you're like, you don't have the same kind of cravings. Because once you cut back on sugar, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Once you do without sugar for a couple of days, it's amazing how quickly your taste buds adjust. And I can't go back to eating sugar or even a couple of things like I used to eat, even though I still crave ice cream now and then. When I have it, it's like man, this is sweet. And even like orange juice, even orange juice now is like, man, it's like I feel like I shot my sugar to the moon. You get so sensitive, but we're so force fed sugar and sodium, and it's
Mhm.
in places you wouldn't think. It's like, why does this have sugar in it? Why is there sugar in
Right.
this?
Yeah, that's always been my argument too.
Yeah.
Why take something that already has natural amounts of sugar in, we're going to pump it full of more sugar.
Yeah, like my biggest shock that I think I've recently come to as far as food is oatmeal. The amount of sodium that they put in oatmeal.
Like, why?
Right.
Like what? Yeah.
And this is why you have products that you can leave unpackaged sitting outside
I
and
I
it
call it
never
fallout food.
disintegrates.
Fallout food, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's all good though for prepping. That's the only thing. Like I
Yeah.
say, the stuff
Yeah.
that's loaded with sodium, it's the perfect food to store if you are a prepper because the shelf life is much longer. It will last you much longer. And like I said, I much rather eat that than starve to death.
I
So,
mean, at some point you got to eat something. I mean,
right.
yeah,
I
it was
will eat
just for,
oatmeal until the day I die, though. Like that's
oh
one
yeah.
thing. I love oatmeal. Yes.
And since I make a lot of my dog biscuits and stuff, so I use the oats. I make flour out of it. I do the whole thing,
Yes.
and salt. They were also joking in the chat about spam.
Oh Lord,
It's like you can
no.
laugh about spam all you want, but that's when you get hungry.
It's there. Yeah, it's there and it can last a long
I
time.
can't do spam. I can't do it. I think I'd rather starve. I'm not even over exaggerating. I can't do it. My husband loves it. The thought of it, I just got like throw up in my throat.
Oh well.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it. But a Vienna sausage, sign me up. Give me 16 cans of them right now.
Kidding me. It's like I look at them and I think I had one once, and when I bit into it, I'm like, this isn't thins. Oh, this is just a hard pass.
Then there's me. I'm like, give me 16 of them right
Yeah,
now.
and meanwhile, like spam, it's like it's not right unless you hit that little when it comes out of it. It's like this is defective. I'm returning this. Sorry if I made you nauseous at the top.
Oh,
But like you said, some of that stuff, it's good to have it, even if you don't eat it. Like recently, I was in a supermarket and they had a 10 for 10 or something, whatever it was for canned ravioli. And
Mm.
I have not had that literally since I must have been a tween the last
Mhm.
time I had that, stuff like ravioli in a can. What were we thinking?
yeah.
Why did I think this was good? But I can eat it straight out of the can if I have to. And it eats a blank. And it's a part of me is curious. It's like, you know what? I kind of want to crack that open now and see if it's because I'm one of those people like I'll decide I don't like something. I'll try anything once. I'll give it a shot. Then if I don't like something, I'll be like, ugh. But I'll go back to it a few years later and go, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. And
Yeah.
I did that with Sunny Delight. It's still it's like I drank it and I'm like, oh, Gary will probably remember this. Orange Julius's.
Yes, I
I was
remember.
oh my God, I was so strung out on Orange Julius's, and I hadn't had one in years. And someplace had an Orange Julius store, and I'm like, what? Is this a time warp? I didn't know they existed anymore. I I was ready to like body check to book it across to get me an Orange Julius, and it tasted awful. I mean, I'm not going to say the word that I want to say. It tasted extremely unpleasant. And you're like, what? I sank so much, but I couldn't wait to spend my allowance to get this huge ass Orange Julius, and that's kind of what it tasted like. Why did I like this?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I had
Yeah,
that urge to go to that ravioli can. I'm like, but I know I'm going to regret it. I'm going to crack it open and be like, what was I thinking?
Yeah. That's like me, like with, I don't know if you know about like they sell them mainly at the dollar store. They're called whales. They're like the cheese little crackers and they're shaped like whales. I used to love them when I was a kid. My mom, like, we grew up like not wealthy, so like we ate what we could afford, so we shopped at the dollar store a lot and I was obsessed with these whales. And when my son was born and like he got his teeth and stuff, I was like, oh my God, like this is a rite of passage, like you have to. And I like ate, like I got them and we were eating and I was like tasting them. I was like, I am eating handfuls of salt and a dry ass cracker right now.
Yeah, there was something else that I had to. Oh, Little Debbie's oatmeal cream pies.
Oh
I
man.
was strung out on those. And I went back to have one after not having one for a while. My last late husband, he's like, "Look what I got for you." And I'm like, "Oh, I've been trying to not." Okay, fine. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just eat one. And it wasn't that it was bad, but the sweetness level was
Mhm.
off the charts, and you could taste the artificial.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's like me with the Little Debbie Cosmic Brownies.
I
Oh,
can't eat anything. I just can't eat
no.
it anymore. Anything that comes in a box wrapped in plastic, I'm going to taste the artificiality in it.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm
There's
like,
something about just making them homemade. It's like I've seen recipes where I've actually tried, I made the Little Debbie Cosmic Brownies homemade before, and I
mhm.
was like, wow, this tastes way better.
Has all
Mm-hmm.
the preservatives and stuff. And
Yeah.
once you start changing your diet and you start eating differently, you start tasting that. And it's like, I don't want to spend my money on this anymore. I can think of other things I'd rather spend it on than this, which really doesn't taste good. It doesn't taste like I remembered it. And of course, us being older, Gary, I'm sure we have the whole thing like that doesn't taste like it used to. None of this stuff tastes like it used to anymore.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, especially cereals. I noticed that because I grew up on cereals.
Oh,
You eat them now, and I said, this is not what I remember them tasting like. They
Mhm.
were bad back then because they were all sugar then. But now I don't know what else they're adding to it. And it does. There's a big taste difference. I don't think it's so much our taste buds changing. I think it's the foods themselves that are changing.
mhm.
Yeah, changing the formulas or whatever. Because
Hmm.
I don't remember which cereal it was, but there was one, and I went back later and I looked at it, and they listed all the dyes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
like all the pretty colors. I'm like,
Mhm.
Probably Fruity Pebbles or Fruit Loops.
what's the other? Was it Lucky Charms? And then
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
with those mushrooms, the mushrooms, the marshmallows. That's awful fun. Mushrooms and cereal. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, the
Gary would like
marshmallow.
that.
I might like that better than
You might give
marshmallows.
it a try. But yeah, I appreciate you guys talking about food.
Mhm.
Yeah, we kind of went all the way into it. We touched on some different stuff. The idea is just, you know, especially with things being so expensive, just to be more cognizant of what it is that you're spending your money on, and at least make it good quality. And if you want to splurge on something, just make it worth it. Make it worth the money. Make it worth the taste and worth the nutrition. Because if you're going to spend the money, at least make it as clean as possible. At least know what's in it. And
Right.
home cooking and doing some home baking is I think also a good bonding experience too. When you get
Mhm.
cooking or baking with your family, you're doing stuff with your kids. Because I was cooking since I was young, and it was fun, to help my grandma make something or cook
Yeah.
with my mom. And you get those extra bonding moments you wouldn't ordinarily have if you're like, oh, I'm just going to go to the drive-through and get this kid a fish sandwich. I can't deal with it right now. And then I think that might be a little bit of a lost opportunity where you could just make a little more connection, just doing something together
Yeah.
that's not involving a television.
Right. And it's good for mental health too, as well.
Mhm.
People don't realize the sense of community and family and, sitting around the kitchen over the stove. That helps you with mental preparedness too for the worst. If you got a good group of people that you're comfortable with, whether it be family or friends, I think that matters the most. And if you're going to live through a storm or the apocalypse, it's best to do it with people that you could surround yourself with. And if it involves food and prepping and meal prepping, it works great together. And that too is great for the mental preparedness for the worst. So yeah, I think it all ties together.
Yeah, and a great support system is everything. So and it isn't always family. It's
Hmm.
sometimes it's your chosen family.
Mhm.
It's not always blood, and having those kind of ties and that kind of support means a lot. Um, but one thing I did want to reach out with Hannah, um, and no detail, of course, or whatever, but I just wanted to find out because I know you were talking about dealing with your kid, but also with you. You've been through some things
Mhm.
and you've been pretty open about having experienced stuff. And I think that I know a lot of single women and single moms, and I think sometimes they feel like, okay, I want to try and connect with these other moms because maybe how many more mothers are like me, or how many more women have gone through this. So what was key for you?
You mean as far as like motherhood or just kind of like womanhood in general?
Womanhood and into motherhood.
So I'll be very honest. I'm 27. I just turned 27 in August. I have had my mental health issues for as long as I can remember. I think I experienced probably like my first anxiety attack, probably when I was around 5. So it's something that I've struggled with basically my whole entire life. And, people who have listened to our podcast before, I have been through a lot of some messed up situations in life. And I think my biggest thing is that of course I did have people around me, who supported me and who was there for me. But I think the biggest thing is that in moments where I was completely in the trenches, where I wanted to give up and I thought that there was no light at the end of the tunnel, there would be just like a glimmer or a shimmer of light. And I just took that shimmer and I just kept like a hyper focus on it and just kept going. Because at the end of the day, even though sometimes I didn't feel like I wanted to live anymore, there was that glimmer in the back of my head that was like, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. So I always recommend for people to, look for the light or their shimmer or whatever you want to call it, because it is there. So that's what keeps me going. I definitely still struggle every single day. But I think also just like not even necessarily like I'm not a gym junkie. I don't go to the gym or something, but taking care of my body, connecting with the universe more, and, watching, of course, what I put in my body has helped me a lot. And then as far as motherhood, after going through what I have gone through, it was definitely a challenge. But I think that I was made to be a mom and I went through hell. Like I went through infertility treatments to have my child.
Mm.
So I think that I just get up and I do it because at the end of the day, I want to break the cycle. I don't want my child to grow up with the problems that I have. But you know what? If he does end up having anxiety or depression, at least he has someone who is me that has gone through things and came out on a positive end of it. Like I wouldn't be here today, and here I am. It's been 11 years since I last attempted to KILL myself. And, I'm here and I think my stories and stuff will help me, as far as a mother, when my kid, thinks that something is the end of the world, like I'm still here. So I use my experiences as life lessons.
Mm. And also, well, congratulations to you for getting through that because
Mhm.
I understand that struggle too. When things are dark, it's kind of it can get tough. Now,
Mhm.
for you, when you were saying you saw that glimmer, was it a piece of art? Was it music? Was it
Music,
memory? Music?
music.
Was it any like a song or something that makes you
It
feel
was, it
way?
was just multiple different songs. I think songs that it's funny enough to say, but it was the sad songs because I think what it resonated with me. So in the back of my head, that glimmer shot out because I was like, wow, there is an artist that is singing what my heart and my brain is currently screaming right now. So I am not the only person that has gone through this.
Oh, okay. I guess I would say the same thing. Definitely music.
Yep.
So you're think if someone's in a really dark place, just to throw on some music and just try to get
Mhm.
themselves out of the funk.
Yeah, and it doesn't even, like I said, it doesn't have to be happy music. Like it can be, but when I tell you when I was going through like the worst time of my life, I was on my like Apple Music or my Spotify or whatever it was, and I literally was looking up like sad girl pro playlist. And that's what got me through it. Like Gary can attest, like he heard me screaming music like all night long sometimes. Like this poor man had to get up early in the morning. Here is my 16-year-old ass in the bedroom, like scream crying music. And he's like, dear God. But you know what? It got me through it.
Yeah,
He
you have
he
to.
hates,
Sometimes happy music when you're depressed, the last thing you want to hear is a happy song.
yeah.
I don't.
He's very particular about what type of music he listens to. And when I was going through it, he would just hand me his phone and let me be DJ, and I'd be screaming like this Miley Cyrus song, and he'd be like, "Oh, what the in the car?" But you know what? It got me through it. So
No,
I was the
it's good
biggest
that you have
critic
that
too.
support.
he was the biggest critic.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there she goes singing again, but she's slightly off
Yeah, he'd be
key.
like flat,
Taking her.
flat.
No, but it's great that you have that support system because I know there's sometimes
Yeah.
folks out there who don't have that, and
Mhm.
good that you had that, and that Gary, especially as a step parent, because
Yeah.
I'm a step parent. You just try to have the best relationship, and then of course we all hear
Yeah.
the horror stories of step parents who are just the relationships are terrible.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I started connecting with you guys, and it's like, oh, he's a stepdad, and they have such a nice relationship. That is so awesome because you're so used to hearing the opposite of that.
I think with Gary, the most important thing is that he never tried to be my parent. He just always was my friend. He never tried to be like, okay, no, like this is the rules, because I would not have freaking listened. I make my like I've always made my own rules. I feel
I
like I've
won't.
yeah. But he just was like, she's got to experience it, she's got to live it. And, he was a friend if I needed a friend. He was never like my enemy. So I think that helped a lot with like how we are today.
Yeah, and just to have that support too, especially when you're going through some tough times. It's like, yes, I have my natural parent, but now I have my step parent. I can lean on them too.
Yeah.
To have that, I think is great. So, lean on your people, folks.
Hmm.
Don't be
Mhm.
afraid. Don't be afraid to reach out. Isn't this like Suicide Prevention Month as well? Aside
It
from,
It
is. I have
is.
my shirt on.
yeah. So yeah, reach out, folks. We've been in some dark places, and you just need to reach out, whether it's your family or your chosen family. Just do that because people care. They really do. Everyone's busy, but if someone was really in a bad, I would stop on a dime to make sure
Hmm.
that they're okay. But thank you for sharing that. I do
Sure.
have one last thing that I wanted to ask you about. Before you did Eye Opener Society, you had a podcast about meditation, and you talked about it a little bit. How did you get into that? And I guess this will be the last thing because we yip yapped really long. But give everyone an idea because you mentioned it earlier. How did you get into it, and would you recommend it? How has it changed you?
Yeah, meditation, I've been doing it for many years, over 25 years now. So, when I started it, it was just a way to relax because I used to be a real type A personality. So it was just a way to lower the blood pressure every now and then. Over the years and more recently, I started getting into it just a lot more to the point where now it's spiritual to me. The benefits way more than eating, and when you achieve what you want to with meditation, anything is possible, and it goes beyond just the health benefits of lower heart rate or lower blood pressure. Mentally, you find yourself in the right places. And that's when I started Third Eye Meditation. It was actually a business that I had where I was going to do meditation coaching. And that's how the podcast came because it was a cheap way to advertise. But the podcast took off more than the business did.
Hmm.
And so I just got into the podcasting so much. I only changed because Hannah came on and she never left. And you run out of stuff to talk about when it
Yeah.
comes to meditation. You can only talk about it so much. And the reason the business didn't go far, everybody wants instantaneous results.
Oh, that doesn't work like that.
It don't.
I've been trying to meditate. That's why they call it a practice because
Right.
it's the attention span thing. The
It is.
shorter and
Mhm.
shorter. It's like we want nirvana right now. It's like, oh, that's not
Yeah,
how it
it
works.
takes years. Like I said, I've been doing it like over 25 years or so. And only now have I reached a point where I can accept going higher. And even at the point that I am at now, I know I could sit and learn so much more. There's so much more to it. So it's a lifelong adventure. It really is. And people just don't realize that they want to be able to do something right away. And that's what the Third Eye Meditation podcast was doing. It was just giving tips, tricks, techniques, and advice on meditation. And I'm going to be bringing a lot more of that back when I do my live radio show on Podbean. I'm going to go back a little bit more to those roots without focusing so much on the meditation because there's so much more that encompasses meditation. So you got to listen to the show.
Yeah.
It's going to be October 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday night.
For someone who's just like, oh, meditation, that just sounds so woo. There's things where like, oh, well, if you just take a mindful minutes, if you just give yourself a few minutes in the morning every day just to kind of collect yourself, do you think that's kind of like a shortcut to not meditation? Do you think that there's a benefit if somebody could at least give themselves that, it's better than nothing?
What I always say is you'll be shocked. No matter how much you think, oh, I'm never going to be able to meditate or I'm not going to meditate, you'll be surprised at how many things you do in your daily activities that actually is meditating.
Okay.
Between daydreaming, Hannah is cleaning. And there's things that if you have a hobby or anything like that, it's all part of meditation. Whenever your mind is focused on something rather than the stress, rather than, the outside world, if you're hyper focused on something, that's meditating. And once you realize that, you're going to understand that it's so much easier to meditate now because you've already done it. Just a different way to look at it and a different way to do it. That's all it is.
Yeah, he stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, we've always been, big believers. You can certainly do like the Buddha if you want to, but I think that's what most people think, like about meditation, that it has to be that way. But we've always been big shouters as far as meditation is whatever you make it to be. So me, it's cleaning. I have this like shower bath ritual for meditation for me, and that works for me. Gary sits outside, or he actually does, the meditation where he's taking like the deep breaths and stuff like that. So there's just so many different ways that you can do it. It's what you want it to be.
That just to take the intimidation factor out of it.
Mhm.
I know for other folks to hear that, no, you don't have to have gongs and
Yeah.
wear
Mhm.
outfits or, sit on lotus blossoms and strange poses
Mhm.
that hurt in order to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Well, this is Gary and Hannah from the Eye Opener Society, and I want to thank them for coming on and talking, which is only my second interview with people on my show, and I'm sure people are happy to hear a different voice other than mine for a change. I appreciate your insight. Your guys' approach is a little bit different than mine, but it's always the mindset. So I think there's that intersection there, and hopefully we can do this again soon. And I wish you much success on your new roster of shows. I can't wait to try and listen to all of them. And Hannah, thank you for sharing what you have. I'm sure it's nice to have a mom on the show that can kind of speak to the kid thing. So
Yeah, well, it was thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
This is really exciting. We always enjoy being guests on other people's shows. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's always a pleasure.
yeah, and so I want to thank everyone for listening. Until next time, this is the Urban Lady Prepper signing off. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that I've given you some things to think about as you go through the upcoming week. I upload a new podcast every Saturday evening, U.S. Eastern Standard Time. Visit my website, urbanladyprepper.com, where I post a new blog every Wednesday and Friday. While there, sign up for my weekly newsletter, which contains information that usually isn't on the podcast or website, and show your support with a donation or buy some Urban Lady Prepper gear. It helps me continue to grow and provide even more content. Join me on the socials. I look forward to hearing from you. Ladies, stay safe, stay sharp, and be ready.